So everyone has it in their heads that surviving a zombie apocalypse would be a cinch.
Oh boy, zombie apocalypse!
Well, not everyone. Some people have come to terms with the fact that they would probably become a zombie within the first day or two of the onset of the zombie apocalypse. Others would say that they are too out of shape to keep running, and others would probably have a complete change of personality when anarchy takes over. But for those that don't fall in those groups, they tend to think they can survive due to the amount of zombie shoot-'em-ups they've played, zombie films they've seen hundreds of times, and even books they've read like the Zombie Survival Guide or World War Z for the hardened academic undead scholars in the world. If you're watching a show like The Walking Dead or one of Romero's movies, the world is ravaged by slow-moving, dim-witted, corroding, alive-again dead boys and girls. It's probably the most popular and well-known form of the zombie motif. But if you think you could take the same skill sets in survival, decontamination, and combat used for decaying, reanimated corpses into a universe that literally just makes a host go absolutely nuts with primal rage and infectious mutations, well, buddy, you've definitely got another thing coming. Today, we aren't asking a question. Today, we are telling you why you wouldn't survive a Left 4 Dead zombie apocalypse. So if you haven't already watched my videos explaining what exactly is the infection in Left 4 Dead or any of the explanations on the special infected in my profile series, make sure to check them out at the end of this video as I go into way more detail than I will here about the green flu infected in Left 4 Dead. Before we get into the harsh reality of what the green flu can turn a civilization into, we need to discuss the idealization of the undead. While I have discussed before that the infected in Left 4 Dead aren't actually dead but rabies-like feral humans, people will tend to strategize and account for the more lumbering and slow undead archetype. If you have the ability to run, keep noise to a fairly low minimum, can easily hack or bash your way through already decaying bodies, and have a well-fortified or high-grounded safe space with plenty of supplies, you may find yourself living through the initial outbreak, which it still never made sense to me on how these slow-moving dead boys could overtake an entire civilization where huge military might exist. You're telling me a horde of hundreds of zombies literally can overtake a military outpost that has tanks, choppers, soldiers, armed personnel with automatic weaponry? Fat chance! But let's just humor that asinine fact for a moment and push through into a universe that all this became possible. The biggest issue with surviving literal dead coming back to life that can only die by removing the head or destroying the brain is the fight against time and resources. Finding a place where the dead cannot reach you would be fairly trying to task on its own, but considering zombies do not need food, water, or even a functioning body, the only thing that can wipe out the general populace of corpses is for the natural state of decay, no pun intended, to settle in and cause each and every zombie to fall victim to the 5 stages of decomposition. As detailed by film theory right here, the zombies of The Walking Dead could very well shamble around till they literally rot to death in the span of about 3.5 years. Unless you create or become a part of a post-apocalyptic society that gets its shit straight, you will most likely either die of starvation, thirst, getting overwhelmed by a horde searching for food or other survivors, or being killed by another survivor. If you're in a scenario like The Walking Dead where anyone becomes a zombie upon death if their brain is not destroyed, then you must also make sure any people with a life-threatening disease or ailment are properly medicated and if not, quarantined to prevent an internal zombie outbreak from starting. All this needing to be accounted for as you wait for the zombies to become piles of biomass. Weapons are also a big factor in staying alive, as guns and melee weapons will be necessary to your survival. Depending on where you live can be a huge factor into the availability on said weapons, and well, most people will say, America, guns everywhere, but guns won't be readily available as they are in games like Left 4 Dead, Call of Duty, and other genres. You aren't going to find a live AK-47 just lying in the streets of New Orleans so frequently, considering it's a more Soviet-used weapon in Russia, but that's if the zombies were to decay like any other regular old corpse. There are some genres that bring the dead back to life, but allow them the ability to run, use basic tools, and think more critically. Not all zombies are slow, unaware, and dim-witted. Those found in the 2004 remake of the Dawn of the Dead or Zombieland are tons more frightening and harder to shake and hold off. But if you're looking for good survival tips against these ghouls, Zombieland has more than a few good tips and tricks. This is where a dramatic shift into your survivability comes into play. Sure, it's easy to think you could stay alive when zombies are coming at you at a sluggish pace, but once you see them moving at full sprint, well, that's when you may change your frame of mind. Unless you've been working on your cardio, these free runners will most likely catch up to you, considering they don't take fatigue into account either due to the fact that they are so rabid that they have only one thing on their mind: violence, or the part of their brain that responds to pain and fatigue has just completely shut down. If being chased relentlessly doesn't change your mind on your chances of survival, maybe the fact that they do not start to rot at all and even begin to rationally think of ways to use their dead status to their advantage, like in the Romero universe, where crossing natural barriers like rivers, where they don't retain the knowledge of swimming, but just walking along the sea floor since they aren't really using their lungs anymore, using tools to break through defenses like this zombie that used a power tool to penetrate a glass door, or oddly enough, a walker in The Walking Dead that used a brick to break the glass. Even though walkers aren't shown to use tools like this any other time in the series, great consistency The Walking Dead writing staff, and even weapons to gun your ass down. These elements are shown as Romero's zombie universe stretched on, but some zombies would show care, compassion, and communication for certain living people though. If the idea of zombies with critical thinking does not scare you, well, I don't know what will. Actually, I do. Zombies and a zombie apocalypse are a scary enough endeavor to strategize in. The primary concern of getting bitten against hordes of undead at any given time, trusting others after martial law sets in, and retaining food and resources could mean the end of you and those around you. But what if the zombies scattered across the apocalyptic wasteland weren't actually decaying walking corpses, but actually still living, mostly breathing humans who succumb to an almost rabies-like virus? The Left 4 Dead universe is a drastic difference in anything you expect from a zombie outbreak. I want to go over the first huge factor and why you will not survive. It's the fact that the green flu is airborne at the beginning. A large number of people fell victim to the virus when it was airborne, basically meaning unless you were in an airtight facility with numerous biocontainment protocols, you most likely fell to the virus without a scratch on you. Theories also revolved around the virus originating from tainted meat, like a mutated strain of mad cow disease.
Fools, I shall destroy you all, starting with the lactose intolerant.
So that's assuming you didn't partake of the forbidden meat unknowingly. A virus this contagious in nature could also run its course by invading local water supplies. So on the initial outbreak of the virus, you would somehow need to avoid breathing the wrong air, eating the wrong meat. Vegans, you're in the clear on this one, and drinking the wrong water, as well as avoiding blood, spit, mucus, sexual discharge, and other viscous fluids from other individuals. If you somehow didn't get infected through the insane infection rate at the beginning, then you would also need to avoid all contact with infected individuals. Now, a lot of people say if they saw a loved one get bitten or become infected, they wouldn't hesitate to off them, but none of us can really say what would happen in a situation like that. Panic situations are a tried and true indicator of how a person truly reacts. In the first 2 weeks of the green flu, CETA and military forces advised to barricading yourself up in your own home. However, like I said earlier, food and resources come into play depending on how well prepared you are to stay bunkered up, really factored into when you will eventually need to venture out for more supplies. If you don't have the aforementioned weaponry at your disposal, as well as ammunition, then you don't feel safe carrying firearms, you may find yourself finding refuge with armed government personnel. But exposing yourself to public safe havens puts you in danger in many different reasons. While you are protected by either security forces or armed personnel, each individual guard could make a quick decision to put you down if they see you as a security risk or health hazard for just simply coughing. You could be placed in a quarantined area with survivors that are actually infected and risk being infected just like them, being gunned down on the spot, or having the compound overrun with outside infected and being trapped like a caged rat. So basically, you need to either be immune, a carrier, or just extremely lucky with where you find yourself and who you are with if you want to stand any chance of making it through this far. But I digress. Besides every other factor that can kill you, what's the most lethal factor about the green flu pandemic? The infected themselves. The infected of Left 4 Dead, like I've said many times before, mimic traits equivalent to those rage infected of the 28 Days/Weeks Later franchise. Relentless and quick to converge on any loud noises or smelling hints of green vomit, these infected, not zombies, infected, will climb any surface at will, jump semi-great heights, break down walls and doors, full sprint to any desired target, and barely rest at all. No matter where an uninfected person is, the infected will find a way to reach them unless they are across a body of water, behind behind a well-fortified structure like a metal door, behind a wall of fire, or a high enough surface where climbing or jumping would be impossible. The common infected may be prone to bite you, but they will also literally beat you to death if given the chance and opportunity. Considering they usually are found in large numbers, the threat of them is worse when encountered as a horde, as they will deplete your ammunition and stamina. But the common infected, even with how hellacious they can be, are not the worst threat the Left 4 Dead universe has to offer, which any fan would just say, well, duh. If you somehow make it through the first 2 weeks of the green flu, you will then be facing the rapid mutation rates of the disease, creating infected that can leap almost 3 stories high, some that can cut you to ribbons by baiting you with crying, infected that can lasso you from a long distance and strangle you or break all of your bones, or worst of all, giant muscular infected that have enough sheer force behind their punch that they can launch vehicles and break through hard walls. The whole basis that the infection that creates the zombie-like populace mutates over time and creates more lethal and powerful infected types worsens any person's chance of surviving. No matter what kind of high ground you have now, the hunters can leap to where you are and smokers can pull you down from where you stand. To no matter how well hidden you are, a sneaky boomer can vomit on you and trigger dozens of nearby infected to detect where you are by smell, and no matter how well fortified your defenses are, the tank can most likely bust right through the foundations, considering he was able to destroy a brick wall with ease and launch a few ton car through the air like it was a damn toy. Developing mutations can also create the jockey, charger, and spitter, but the spitter would be the primary state of concern, as being hit by stomach acid from a distance would realistically mean death or permanent joint or muscle damage, as stomach acid covering your body would corrode a large portion of your flesh. As I discussed in what would happen to the survivors after Left 4 Dead, the infected would not have a high lifespan though, as they are still technically living individuals that require full body function to survive, meaning they need to eat and sleep and use their hearts and brains to survive. Considering they do not eat or drink and rarely sleep, the common infected would probably start to die out within the first month. The special infected would die out even sooner, considering the extreme strain their mutations put on their bodies. Corroding zombies having a lifespan of up to 3.5 years, the Left 4 Dead infected would at most need a month or 2 before the populace dies out if they cannot keep making more infected numbers. So if you're wishing to survive through the green flu pandemic, you will need to find in or be in a safe enough compound that a horde or tank cannot break down the walls, round-the-clock security to make sure said infected cannot scale the walls, a steady supply of food, water, and weapons, and medicine, and a group that won't kill you while you sleep, as well as a clean facility that keeps up safety protocols. If you're immune, you won't have to worry, but you will have to worry about others that will probably either try to kill you or cast you out if you're actually a carrier, and basically just ward yourself out from interacting with anybody that's infected in general. But the chances of all these convenient pieces falling into place are extremely unlikely for you. The fact that the survivors in Left 4 Dead series make it through all this is just a miracle, and it's honestly there just to push the gameplay narrative. If you would like to see me do a video on how and why the survivors in both games were able to survive as long as they did, let me know in the comments. But yeah, the amount of time you'll need to stay alive and uninfected in Left 4 Dead is much shorter than a generic zombie apocalypse, but that shorter amount of time is much more difficult and deadly. There's no telling where you might be when it starts, and that will be the primary factor into what you will do once the spread of the outbreak begins. Whether you're at work, home, school, or out to eat at IHOP, even if you have a strategy in mind, do you have the mental power to make decisions to actually take down a zombie or infected that you may know? Are you physically fit enough to swing a fire axe around and have enough power to cut infected repeatedly over and over again? And keep in mind, melee weapons will break eventually. If you're damaged, do you really think downing a whole bottle of prescription drugs will get you up and going after having your chest ripped open? Newsflash, taking pain medications like ibuprofen in excess will have more bad effects than good, especially if it's powerful stuff like Norco, in which case you'll die on the spot. And putting duct tape around your body will not make you feel 80% better, despite what the medkits may make you think in Left 4 Dead. There won't be safe room doors that are impervious to Hulk damage in the real world, and I highly doubt you'll find an M16 or SCAR lying around on the streets as you first venture out into the apocalyptic world that is your neighborhood. Besides, to just aim well with the gun and shoot accurately requires training and composure. Just the sheer kickback from a shotgun would probably break the wrist of half the people watching this video.
I told you to lean forward, bro.
And how many of you have enough food at your place to last more than a week realistically? And how many weebs and fuckboys out there would jump at the chance of helping out a crying woman declaring, "I'm here to save you, my lady," only to get jebaited and killed by the witch? Quite a few, I would say. Anyways, I'm starting to ramble. If you think you could survive the Left 4 Dead version of the zombie apocalypse, let me know in the comments. And if you think I didn't cover enough, you can do that too. The green flu, however, is probably the worst case scenario for an apocalyptic setting, probably on the same level as Resident Evil. You guys are not going to survive. So if you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think was good about it. And if you want to see more videos, donate to my Patreon. Here is a list of everyone that's donated. So thanks for everything, guys. I know I haven't been posting as much as I do with the analytical videos. I've just been on a hiatus with Left 4 Dead stuff, but I'm getting back to it. So just keep an eye out for that. And until next time, thanks for watching. Stay wow. Zack here of Wow Stitch Gaming.